So today we're going to talk about something slightly different. I love trading. I've basically dedicated the last 6 years of my life to this. There's a lot of positives, but on the other side, there are some negatives. So I want to talk about the 5 reasons why trading sucks. And I know that sounds kind of intense, but there are a lot of negatives when it comes to this business. And I feel like not many traders are really honest and transparent about those negative things. And I really want to go over some of those today. So let's start with number 1, and it's very obvious. Trading is very hard. This is a ridiculous skill set to learn and probably arguably one of the hardest. 90+% of traders fail. I do believe that there is a reason behind that because they're trying to get rich quick in the beginning. They usually blow out their account before they have an opportunity to figure out what works for them. So I think that's why that's pretty high. But along the way of trying to figure it out, because it's so difficult, one of the really negative things is that on that journey, and I guess you could relate this to any other business, but especially trading, is that when you're trying to figure it out and you're going through that really difficult period of time, because this is so money oriented, it really can cause depression when you're going through those struggles. And I know that I experienced this in my journey. For the first 2.5 years, I struggled a lot trying to figure out what works best for myself. And because I had a hard time making progress and I was putting in a lot of hours, a lot of work, and I did not see the payoff, I started to get depressed because I felt like it wasn't going to work out. Lucky enough, I was able to persevere. And after about 3.5 years of giving it everything I had, I started to see positive results. But that is one thing that people don't realize, that because this is so difficult, it's so money oriented, it's really hard to figure out that journey of figuring out is going to be very difficult. And along the way, you're probably going to feel pretty low and you may even experience depression like I did. I feel like that's something that not a lot of traders talk about, but it was my reality. And I know that if I experienced it, there's plenty other people who experience it as well. So if you get to a point in your journey where you're trying to figure it out and you start to feel pretty low, the best thing to do, which I did, is take a break, step away from the market, and then come back when you feel mentally better. And now let's get into number 2, which is pretty obvious. It's inconsistent income. This is not a 9-to-5, and this is not a stable paycheck. This is one of the few jobs where you can show up, give it everything you have that week, and still lose money. You got to be a little crazy to want to pursue trading as a career, especially being that it's very up and down. It is such a roller coaster ride. But probably one of the toughest things to get used to is that income is going to be very inconsistent. You can have times where you're making a good amount, and then you can have times where you're breaking even, things are a little tougher. Maybe you're even losing a little bit of money. And to be honest, that's okay. That's not a bad thing. At the end of the day, you just want to make sure that you don't lose your account, take those really big losses, possibly put yourself out of business, because once you do that, then it's game over. So not only just in the beginning, but throughout the remainder of your trading career, that income is always going to be inconsistent, and that's something that you just have to accept. Once you can accept that, you kind of detach yourself from the money, you focus more on the process, and that's usually when you end up making more, when you're not thinking about that P&L as much. So that's the income part. Now let's get into number 3. It can really become an unhealthy obsession. If you start trading and you realize that it is a passion, which I found out pretty quickly that I really am obsessed with this, I like it a lot, it kind of takes over. It can take over your mind, kind of physically, mentally, everything. And it really can become something that you obsess about, and then it kind of takes over your whole life. In the beginning of my journey, I was sitting in front of the computer screens for 15 hours a day. There'd be times where I would skip meals. I wouldn't work out. I kind of let myself go downhill a little bit because I was so obsessed with not only the market in general, but I really wanted it to work out that it started to become an unhealthy obsession. And it actually started to affect my personal life, where I wasn't really hanging out with people that much. I wasn't going out. I wasn't doing things. I didn't travel. I really just lived and breathed it. And the only thing I did in between was sleep. And then when I wasn't sleeping, I was sitting in front of the computers, and that was all that I did. So I'm a big fan of being obsessed. I think you have to work harder than everybody and you got to put in more hours, but there can be a part where it goes a little too far and then it's too much. And then you actually start going backwards in your progress. That's what I noticed after about 2.5 years. And that's why I took that break, because when I realized it was becoming unhealthy, I needed to step away. And that step away was fantastic because when I came back, I was ready. I had the right approach, the right mindset, and then I started to make a lot of progress. So I think it's okay to be obsessed with it. I think that is a big piece to finding success. But when it starts to become unhealthy and it starts to affect your personal life, that's when it becomes a problem. So now let's get into number 4, which is big losses. So being that we're trading and we're dealing with money every single day, it's hard to be perfect. Every now and then you're going to take a big loss. I've taken numerous in my trading career, and sometimes that can really screw you up mentally. Because when you feel like you're figuring it out and everything is going well, you're kind of riding pretty high, and then that's the moment when the market kind of sneaks up on you, and you can get hit pretty hard. You take a big loss. Maybe you were trading with too big a size. You held the loser a little bit longer than you were supposed to. We're all human. It's hard to be perfect. And when that happens, that can kind of totally flip your world upside down. You start to associate that loss with things that you could have done with that money instead. And then sometimes people can't come back from that because they're looking at a really big loss. It's kind of devastating. They're not used to taking big losses before, especially in the beginning when you kind of take that first loss. Maybe the second one, it's still relatively new. You lose a lot of confidence, and then you start to question whether or not this is something that you want to do. Losses are a part of the game, and especially big losses. It's going to happen to everybody every now and then. And when it does, not mentally crumbling is very important because confidence in this game is everything. And if you lose confidence, that's a lot of times where people spiral out of control. And it also just sucks to lose money, right? That never feels good. But what happens is, if you take that big loss once and then you get yourself out of it and you do it a handful more times, because I've taken numerous big losses, when you dig yourself out of that hole, that's when that confidence can remain high because you've been there before, you've been able to recover and everything has been okay. So as time goes on and you gain more experience, you can be confident that if it happens again, you can be okay just like you were all the other times before. But losing big still really sucks. I know that it's never going to go away. There's always going to be those times where I screw up. And I just have to be able to deal with it and accept it because that's the game that we signed up for. Welcome to trading. And now let's get into the last one, which is loneliness. So being that this is a very individual career, I'm not working with a team. Yes, you can go get a job at prop shops and things like that, but majority of people are sitting in their computers by themselves. That can be very lonely when you're spending a lot of time alone and you don't have a lot of human interaction. And especially in the beginning, the first couple years when you're really trying to figure it out and you're going through the ups and downs of trying to grind it out and turn the corner, when you're going through all those ups and downs alone, it can make it even more difficult because you don't have anyone to talk to about what's going on internally, the stress that you're feeling. That's why social media can be a really good asset where you connect with people on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, other traders that are going through the same thing, so that way you're not alone. And I'll be honest, I'm pretty guilty of being a bit of a loner because being that I'm working from home, this is something that I'm obsessed with. It's easy to not want to go out and kind of just focus on this. And then that can kind of spiral into the habit of getting used to that. And then that's where you can become very lonely. So it's very important that whether you're a new trader or an experienced one, that you do your best to try to get out, do things with other people, have a positive social interaction so you don't become such a loner. And also another thing to touch on is that you're going to be misunderstood. So I know that when I first talked about being a trader, I want to trade for a living, majority of people around me did not understand what I wanted to do. And they basically told me that I don't think that that's going to work out. So you're going to be misunderstood by a lot of people. And that's why, once again, leaning on the social media aspect of things, it's good to connect with a group or people online who are fellow traders as well. Because if you're misunderstood by everyone around you, sometimes that can mess with your confidence. And then that can actually screw your trading career up. Positivity is very important, especially in the beginning when you're really working hard to figure this out. So if you have negative energy, negative people around you telling you that, one, it doesn't work, two, you're not going to figure it out, you got to get away from those people, find positive individuals to be around so that way you have the best chance at succeeding. So now let's just do a quick overview of the 5 reasons why trading can suck. Number 1, it's very hard, has a really high failure rate. Number 2, incredibly inconsistent income. This is not a 9-to-5. Number 3, it can become a very unhealthy obsession. You got to make sure to work on that, not let it go that far. Number 4, the big losses, losing huge money can suck. And number 5, it can be very lonely. So these are some things to think about when it comes to trading, whether or not you're on your journey or considering becoming a trader, because this is the reality. It's not all sunshine and rainbows like social media makes it seem. So this is just kind of the truth about what trading really can be. There's not all positive. There is some negative there, even though overall I do love this career and there can be a lot of good things from it. So that was a video on the 5 reasons why trading sucks. Hopefully you got some value out of the video. Feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. I just want to talk about a couple cool things that I have to offer. The first is going to be my newsletter watch list. This is exactly what I post on my private Twitter 30 minutes before market open every single day. I do a quick analysis of the overall market, the SPY and the Qs, if there's any major market news that day, and then all the stocks I'm interested in watching. It's usually 4 or 5, if there's any major news tied to them, and all the levels that I think are in play. To the left, this is exactly what I'm posting on my private Twitter. I make sure to add that newsletter. I take a screenshot of the charts, green line to the upside being long, red line to the downside being short, and I make sure to highlight those 2 levels above. This is everything that's going on in my mind and my game plan going into each market open. Also, I make sure to add a little mental note because every day is slightly different, and here's an example of that. And if you want something that's a little bit less of a commitment, I do offer a live one-on-one call for 1 hour. This is where you can ask me questions about my journey, go over setups specifically, everything that I've gone through as a trader. Whether you're beginner or advanced, this is a great way to connect with me. So if you're interested in my private Twitter or the one-on-one live call, feel free to go to callmattdiamond.com or check out the links in the description below.